There was someone else went undercover at a queer conference. I'm actually really excited about this. I don't know who Brian is, but apparently Brian Harrison is a Texas state representative. And Brian Harrison found himself undercover at a queer conference. Now, I don't think he understands that it's a queer conference. I think, like most conservatives, he thinks this is about transing the kids or sexualizing the kids, when we know, because we watch Queer Marxists all the time, we watch Queer Theory all the time, we know exactly what Brian walked into, and he walked into a radical revolutionary anarcho-communist queer conference, and he just doesn't know that because no one has taught him this. It's not his fault, it's the fault of the people who are meant to educate conservatives who don't do their job. But we know what this is, and I just wanted to show you what Brian found, because he actually did post some really good queer materials for us. Look at this. He posted a bunch of pictures, and I gotta give props. I mean, you guys remember we had that instance of someone going viral on Twitter a couple months ago for saying, I went to a secret Antifa meeting and recorded it. And then we were like, okay, can you release the recording because we want to know what Antifa said? And they refused, and they threw a giant hissy fit and all that stuff. What Brian did, State Representative Harrison, I don't want to be disrespectful, what Brian did is he took photos and he released them, and he's going viral on Twitter for it, and good for him. He should be. The more people who see this stuff, the better. But he's doing the correct thing, which is you go undercover at the event, you get a bunch of evidence, you put it on the internet so that other people can learn from it, and we can all see what's going on at all these secret events all over the country. So check this out. Transcendence, a century of black queer ecstasy. We know what transcendence means. The reason that I say that Brian went to a queer conference and not a trans conference is that trans for queer activists means transition. It means transition from man to woman or woman to man. The ultimate goal of queer activism, of course, is to abolish the gender binary and also the nuclear family via the gender binary. They want to abolish all gender. They don't want people transitioning from one gender to the other gender because that is still an acknowledgement of the gender binary. What they want is to transcend gender or transform gender. So when you go to a lot of like these queer conferences, if you're seeing stuff about transcendence or transforming, just know that when they say trans, they don't mean transition from man to woman or woman to man. They mean transcend the gender binary. Transform the gender binary, which means get rid of it altogether. Non-binary means no binary, and the binary, of course, is men and women, and we cover that stuff all the time on the channel. But anyway, look at the very first picture that Brian posts. Transcendence. This is how we know it's a queer conference, and we didn't even need to see queer ecstasy on the banner because we already knew it was a queer conference. Found the agenda for day one, keeping time, queer crip temporal attunement through tarot. Does everyone know what queer crip is? Crip is a reference to disability studies, what is disability theory really? I mean, that's a great question. So we actually don't cover disability studies as much. We should probably get into more of it. So disability studies, or critical disability theory, or crip theory as we're seeing it here, it is a subset of queer theory. Essentially, the whole idea of queer theory is that there is normative, that means norms that uphold capitalism, and and then they are against normativity, so anti-normative. So queer is going to be an anti-normative ideology, again, with normative being norms that uphold capitalism. When it comes to disability studies, what they're going to tell you is that the normative thing is for an able-bodied person, a person that can walk around and that doesn't have any, neurodivergence or anything like that. They don't need to be in a wheelchair. They aren't an amputee. They don't have a chronic illness. Able body is considered normative. What is considered queer or crip is anything that is not able-bodied, but most often they're not even referring to a physical illness or ailment. Most of the time they're referring to autism. Most of the time they're referring to neurodivergence, but that is almost always a reference to autism. And guess what? Their autism is almost entirely self-diagnosed. So yeah, disability justice, crip studies comes under queer theory. This is a great way to put it. Your able-bodiedness means productivity. That's why it relates to capitalism. You're able to be a better contributor to the capitalist normative system. That's both a cultural and an economic model. We've talked about that in other places. So if this were true equity, we would all be disabled, kind of like Harrison Bergeron. Well, everyone was disabled in Harrison Bergeron, weren't they? They had forced disability via the state so that everyone could be at the same level. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way before, Tom, but you might be right. So they got queer crip theory going on. That must have been a fun presentation. Walking in with the catering staff, I arrived in time to hear some of the presentation. I bore a hell within me, a narrative femicide and reproduction of Frankenstein. I would kill to hear a recording of this presentation. I would kill for it. After listening to as much as I could handle, I began walking around campus. Resources for trans folks, including medical transitioning. And this, by the way, all of this shit goes against Trump's executive orders. I hope everyone understands that. Like, this is the University of Texas, government-funded institution in a red state. I am so sick of people saying this doesn't happen in red states. It does happen in red states. University of Texas. This is all against Trump's executive orders. All of this is actually not allowed right now. How to use pronouns. Oh, we love this one. Is God a submissive or a dominant? Now, because we've been watching queer kink workshops recently, and no, we're not watching sex or anything like that, but they do non-sexual kink-related workshops because queer people are obsessed with kink. They're obsessed with BDSM, and the reason they're obsessed with kink, and the reason they're obsessed with BDSM, and I swear to God, this is the truth, it is not actually about sex. What they are doing is they are playing out the power dynamics of capitalism via kink and BDSM. So they're consensually playing out the power dynamics of capitalism. Why do we know this? Because we've literally watched them talk about it in their seminars. And so it sounds weird, but this is not about them just like wanting to get off and wanting to get laid and wanting to do kinky stuff. What they are playing with here is God a sub or a dom. They're talking about the power dynamics of capitalism, but they're doing it in an inflammatory way because they are queering what it means to talk about this stuff. But this one caused a little bit of a stir that I thought was interesting. Using the interrelationships between, I don't know how to say that, attributes in Islamic theory to reflect upon themes of pain and pleasure in kink and BDSM. We literally just watched a presentation for Spy Stream for the Spy Stream that my supporters have, where we went inside a queer rope workshop, and I have this all on video, where an Islamic woman got tied up with her hijab. And there were all sorts of other political symmetry around this whole kind of played out thing where they took the hijab off and they put a gag in her. I swear to God, they were all clothed and it wasn't sexual. They put a gag in her mouth and then they tied her all up with the hijab and they hung her over a prayer mat. And it was supposed to be symbolic of the oppressive ideology of Islam. This is how I know explicitly about this. This is not even about, like, this is literally using, like, kink and BDSM to make political statements and to be subversive. That's what this is about. Because we just watched a presentation about it not too long ago. Trans convening against disposability. Trans care and lessons from disability justice. I would kill to hear these recordings. We have to read this book, Terrorizing Gender, Transgender Visibility, and the Surveillance Practices of the Security State. Oh, wow, that's queer Marxism all over it, isn't it? They've got the flags all over the place. They've got stickers. I want to know what this this is already passed. See, I want to go through and I want to look up these speakers, and I want to try to find these speakers and find them on videos talking about other things. Look at ciscentrism, transmisogyny, colorism, sizeism, biphobia, and transphobia gather around combating trans, misog, noir, and queer phobia. I'm going to bet Brian doesn't know what any of those words mean, and God bless him for putting himself through this. Like, truly, I don't mean that with any disrespect. I'm just saying that this all means queer. More flags. And this is all coming out of the Gender and Sexuality Center at the University of Texas, so that's going to go over real well for them. They've got a whole bookcase of trans and queer books. What can I do with a gender studies degree? That's a good question. That's a good question. All this stuff still being taught at these. See, this is all the University of Texas at Austin, guys. This is not legal for them to be teaching this. It's against Trump's executive order. They're going to get their funding pulled for this if they don't fix it, which I think is pretty great. Brian also continued to post, that's not the one I wanted, this one. Brian also continued to post this. Check this out. Hello, Jules Gill Peterson. Non-medical transition resource guide, a resource guide for ways to trans your gender without HRT and accessible mind. We hear queer activists talk about this all the time. The reason that queer activists don't need to medically transition is because they're not trying to transition from man to woman or woman to man. To be queer is to not be a man or a woman to man. So they don't actually have to do anything to their body. To be queer is a lifestyle choice. It is a political philosophy. They are choosing to live outside the system. They are choosing to live an anti-normative lifestyle. Bro, if you're not here to learn, you don't have to be here. We are here to learn and we take this seriously. If you don't take this seriously, you can go somewhere else. I promise you, if you don't want us to talk about what the far left is saying, you won't last more than 5 minutes on this channel. So that's why they're saying a non-medical transition resource guide, because they don't believe in medical transition, because it's not about going from man to woman or woman to man. It is about transcending gender or transforming gender, living outside the binary. They do that in other ways. No, it doesn't. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in a timeout, and you're going to be timed out. Well, I'll give you a mini timeout at first. If you want to come back and continue to post like you're posting and not listening, I'm just going to time you out for the rest of the stream. And then you can sit and listen, and you can learn. But you're not going to shitpost in my chat. It's against the rules. So he goes through all of this: voice training, binding, what to do if you can't buy a chest binder. I mean, this is all produced by queer activists. Tucking, packing. Look at this. All non-medical transition. And I have to, I have to give him credit because he is a state representative in Texas. I am calling to completely defund the University of Texas unless they immediately terminate the Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies Department, their LGBT studies, and the DEI programs. Yes. Yes, Brian Harrison. Yes. Yes. We salute you. Brian, he walked into the belly of the beast. He was around all the queer insanity. I've been undercover at many of these events. I know exactly what that's like. And look at how quickly he took action. How beautiful. You mean to tell me a Republican politician saw something insane? The same stuff that we've been watching for years and years and years and screaming about, and no one effing listens to us? But a Republican politician finally got clued in. He went undercover. He saw what was happening for himself. He took a bunch of pictures and he did something about it. Oh, I sent him a DM on Twitter. Whether he answers me I sent him a very nice DM. I hope he does answer me. I would like to start. Part of what I'm going to be doing this year is I'm going to be doing more outreach to try to teach people about stuff like this, because like I keep saying, people don't understand. We are about to see a massive resurgence in queer activism. I promise you. A massive, massive, massive resurgence. So I hope he answers. If he doesn't, that's okay, because he still did a pretty good job with this whole thing. So we appreciate that.